All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show for our daily deep dive into UPSC Current Affairs.
It's the 12th of March, 2025, and as always, we've got a lot to cover.
This is actually just part one, so stay tuned for parts 2 and 3 coming up soon.
As dedicated UPSC aspirants, you know how crucial it is to stay updated.
And yeah, some of what we discussed today might sound familiar.
Think of it as a good revision session to solidify your knowledge.
We'll be starting off with a tense situation that's unfolded in the North Sea.
A cargo ship has collided with a tanker carrying jet fuel, causing a fire and a fuel spill.
Not exactly the kind of news you want to hear, especially considering how strategically important the North Sea is.
It's a major shipping route, one of Europe's most productive fishing grounds.
And it's a significant source of oil and natural gas, too.
Right, so this incident really highlights the vulnerability of these critical maritime areas.
The potential for environmental and economic disruption is huge.
And, the North Sea is known for its rough conditions, strong currents, unpredictable weather.
Making the situation even more complex.
Absolutely. Its geography, surrounded by countries like the UK, Norway, Denmark, Germany, all contributes to these challenging conditions.
All right, let's move from rough seas to a climate pattern that's been making headlines, La Nina.
It's fascinating how La Nina, while bringing cooling, also disrupts rainfall patterns globally.
It's like a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
Cooling might seem beneficial in a warming world, but the impact on rainfall can be significant.
Exactly. We're seeing increased rainfall and flooding in regions like Australia and Southeast Asia,
while places like South America and parts of the U.S. are experiencing drier conditions.
And this is where it gets particularly relevant for India.
The monsoon.
La Nina can either boost or weaken the monsoon, depending on its strength and timing.
Which, as all of us in India know, is absolutely crucial for agriculture.
And here's another layer to consider. Climate change might actually be weakening the cooling effects of La Nina,
making its influence on the monsoon even more unpredictable.
This raises some important questions for policymakers.
How do we adapt agricultural practices to increasingly erratic weather patterns?
How do we ensure food security in the face of all this climate uncertainty?
These are some serious challenges, especially for a country like India, where agriculture is the backbone of our economy.
It's the livelihood for millions of people.
Now let's shift gears to a more positive development, a story of international cooperation, Khanjar 12.
Ah, yes, the joint military exercise between India and Kyrgyzstan.
It seems like strengthening ties with Central Asian nations is becoming increasingly important for India's foreign policy.
It certainly is, and Khanjar 12 is a perfect example of this growing strategic partnership.
This is the 12th edition of the exercise.
And it's focused on exchanging expertise in counterterrorism operations and special forces tactics.
Particularly in challenging mountainous terrain, which seems particularly relevant considering the terrain along India's northern borders.
Absolutely. They're honing skills in advanced sniping, close quarters combat, complex building interventions, crucial skills for modern warfare.
And what I found particularly interesting is the emphasis on mountain warfare techniques.
Right. It provides both countries with an opportunity to learn from each other,
to enhance their capabilities in high-altitude warfare.
But it's not just about military skills. There's also a cultural exchange aspect.
They're celebrating Nowruz, the Kyrgyz New Year, as part of the exercise,
fostering deeper understanding and camaraderie between the two nations.
It's a great example of how diplomacy can work on multiple levels.
Building trust and cooperation through shared experiences.
All right, let's turn our attention to a topic that's been in the news lately, the Kisan Credit Card scheme.
There's been a sharp increase in bad loans related to Kisan Credit Card accounts,
which is a worrying sign.
It could indicate some underlying stress in the agricultural sector.
Can you give us a quick overview of the scheme?
Sure, the Kisan Credit Card was launched back in 1998.
To provide farmers with easy access to credit?
For their agricultural needs, things like buying seeds, fertilizers, covering other expenses.
It's been a lifeline for millions of farmers.
But this recent rise in bad loans is concerning.
What could be contributing to this?
Well, it's likely a combination of factors, crop failures due to unpredictable weather,
pests,
diseases.
All of these can severely impact a farmer's ability to repay loans.
And then you have fluctuating market prices for agricultural produce,
leaving farmers with lower than expected incomes.
And we can't forget the rising input costs.
Fertilizers, seeds, all squeezing their already tight margins.
It's a complex picture for sure.
Understanding these challenges is crucial for crafting effective policies to support our farmers.
All right, moving on to a health concern that's been making headlines. The H1N1 virus.
Or, as it's commonly known, swine flu.
There's been a recent surge in cases, so it's important for our listeners to be aware.
H1N1 is a respiratory illness caused by a type A influenza virus.
It spreads through coughing and sneezing, much like the regular flu.
Symptoms include fever, cough, sore throat, body aches, fatigue.
Not fun at all.
Thankfully, most people recover without needing to be hospitalized.
But the key is awareness and prevention. Absolutely. Frequent hand washing, covering your mouth while coughing or sneezing, and staying home when sick can go a long way.
Simple steps, but they can make a huge difference.
Remember, India saw its first H1N1 case back in 2009.
And we've had outbreaks since then, including this current one.
Staying informed and taking precautions is crucial.
Okay, let's move on from this to something a bit more uplifting. A fascinating creature.
The Sarus Crane.
Recently spotted in Assam, much to the delight of bird enthusiasts.
The Sarus Crane is quite a majestic bird.
It holds the title of world's tallest flying bird.
They're predominantly gray with a striking red head and upper neck.
Often found in wetlands, sometimes even close to human settlements.
You know what's particularly interesting about them? They mate for life.
Really? That's quite rare in the animal kingdom.
It is. They're known for their monogamous nature, a testament to their strong pair bonds.
But sadly, habitat loss, pollution, hunting have put them in a vulnerable position,
They are listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List.
highlighting the need for conservation efforts to protect this incredible species.
We need to ensure these magnificent birds continue to grace our skies.
Absolutely. Now let's zoom out and look at the global arms trade. Some recent data from Sumpri has revealed some interesting shifts.
Ukraine has become the world's largest arms importer.
While the USA has solidified its position as the top arms exporter.
These changes reflect the shifting geopolitical landscape.
The ongoing war in Ukraine has understandably led to a surge in arms imports for the nation.
As they defend themselves against aggression,
The U.S., on the other hand, has increased its arms exports, reaching a 43% share of the global market.
it's a complex interplay of factors driving these trends,
This data also shows a decline in Russia's arms exports,
which raises questions about how this will impact a country like India.
which has traditionally relied on Russia for its defense equipment.
Russia's decline can be attributed to several factors.
Sanctions imposed due to the war in Ukraine.
Competition from emerging exporters like France.
For India, this shift presents both challenges and opportunities,
It encourages us to diversify our arms imports.
moving away from that traditional reliance on Russia.
But it also requires us to navigate the evolving global arms market carefully.
Speaking of evolving markets, let's talk about the Indian stock market.
SEBI is considering some significant changes to short-selling regulations,
Potentially allowing it for all stocks except those in the trade-to-trade segment.
something UPSC aspirants should definitely be aware of.
Absolutely. Can you explain what the trade-to-trade segment is all about?
Sure, the T2T segment, as it's called, is a unique feature of the Indian stock market.
It exists to curb excessive speculation and volatility.
To put it simply, if you buy a T2T stock today,
You can only sell it after the settlement, which typically takes 2 days.
SEBI's proposal to allow short selling for other stocks could make the market more dynamic.
But it's important to understand the implications.
For sure, short selling essentially allows investors to profit from a decline in a stock's price,
It involves borrowing shares, selling them at the current price.
then buying them back later at a hopefully lower price to return to the lender.
It's a risky strategy,
It can add liquidity to the market.
but it's not for the faint of heart.
SEBI's move suggests they're trying to strike a balance.
Increasing market flexibility while still retaining safeguards for specific stocks.
It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Okay, for our final topic in this part of our deep dive, let's turn to a development that's raised some concerns in India.
China's deployment of a large phased array radar, or LPAR, near the China-Myanmar border.
This has definitely caught the attention of India's security circles.
And for good reason, this LPAR system, located in Yunnan province, has a huge surveillance range,
Exceeding 5,000 kilometers, that's enough to cover a large portion of Indian territory.
including sensitive areas like the eastern coast where India conducts missile tests.
So essentially, this radar gives China a window into our military activities.
It allows them to monitor what we're doing, which is a serious concern.
Can you explain what makes LPARs so powerful? How do they differ from traditional radar systems?
LPARs are far more advanced than traditional radars.
They use electronically steered antennas instead of relying on mechanical rotation.
This allows them to scan vast areas almost instantly, tracking multiple targets with incredible precision.
And they're especially good at detecting and tracking ballistic missile launches.
which is why this deployment is raising eyebrows in India.
So the question is China using this LPAR to monitor India's missile tests and gather intelligence on our capabilities?
It's definitely a possibility, and it's something that India needs to take seriously.
Developing countermeasures will be crucial.
Absolutely. We need to protect our security interests in the face of these evolving challenges.
All right, we'll leave that thought hanging for now, but don't forget, this is just part one of our deep dive into the 12th of March 2025 current affairs.
We still have a lot more to unpack in parts 2 and 3, so stay tuned for those.
We'll be back soon to delve deeper into these topics and explore even more current events that are relevant for your UPSC preparations.
Until then, keep those critical thinking skills sharp and stay curious.
And we're back for part 2 of our deep dive into UPSC current affairs for the 12th of March 2025.
Picking up right where we left off, let's talk a bit more about China's new LPAR and what it means for India.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. That surveillance range is massive.
It covers a huge chunk of Indian territory, including those sensitive areas on the eastern coast where India conducts missile tests.
It really does make you think, is China using this to keep tabs on our military activities?
It's certainly a possibility they could be gathering intelligence on our capabilities, our missile technology.
That's not a good thought. What can India do to counter this?
Well, for starters, we need to invest in our own radar capabilities. India is already working on developing indigenous LPAR systems.
So we're not just sitting ducks here.
No, not at all. But it's not just about technology, it's also about strategy.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about it. Countering a system like the LPAR requires a multi-pronged approach.
We need to be smart about this.
Exactly. We could develop countermeasures to jam or deceive the radar.
That would be pretty cool.
We could also diversify our missile testing locations, make it harder for them to track us.
And of course, cybersecurity is paramount. We can't let them get their hands on our sensitive data.
Right. Protecting our digital infrastructure is just as important as developing our physical capabilities.
It's a complex challenge, that's for sure, but we need to stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. Investing in research and development, fostering innovation in defense technology, these are all crucial steps.
And let's not forget about international collaboration.
Working with other countries that share our concerns, sharing intelligence, coordinating strategies, all of this can make a big difference.
All right, let's shift gears back to India for a moment. We were talking earlier about the Indian stock market and SEBI's proposed changes to short-selling regulations.
Right. They're considering allowing it for all stocks except those in the trade-to-trade segment.
And you explained how short-selling works, basically betting on a stock's price going down.
Exactly. You borrow shares, sell them at the current price, and then buy them back later at a hopefully lower price to return to the lender.
It's a pretty risky move, though.
It is, but it can also be a useful tool for experienced investors. It can help to make the market more efficient.
So if SEBI goes ahead with this plan, what impact could it have on the Indian stock market?
Well, it could attract more sophisticated investors, hedge funds, that kind of thing.
So more money flowing into the market.
Potentially, yes, and it could also make the market more responsive to global cues.
But it could also make things more volatile, right?
That's a possibility. Short selling can amplify both gains and losses, so it's important to have strong risk management frameworks in place.
And investor education, too. People need to understand the risks involved before they jump in.
Absolutely. It's not something to take lightly, but it's definitely a development worth keeping an eye on.
Okay, now let's go back to space for a bit. I want to hear more about Chandrayaan-3 and that incredible discovery of evidence suggesting water ice beyond the moon's polar regions.
It's a truly groundbreaking finding. It could change everything we thought we knew about the moon.
You mentioned that this data came from the CHASE-D instrument. Can you tell us a bit more about how that works?
Sure. CHASE-D stands for Chandra's Surface Thermophysical Experiment. It's designed to measure temperature variations beneath the lunar surface.
So it's like a thermometer, but for the moon.
Sort of, but it's much more sophisticated than that. It can actually penetrate the lunar soil and detect temperature differences at various depths.
That's amazing.
It is, and that's how it was able to detect that temperature difference between the surface and a depth of 10 centimeters, which strongly indicates the presence of water ice.
And why is the discovery of water ice so important?
Well, it opens up all sorts of possibilities for future lunar missions. Think about it. Water is essential for human life.
We need it to drink, to breathe. It could even be used to create fuel.
Exactly. Instead of having to transport all of those resources from Earth, we could potentially utilize what's already there on the moon.
That would make lunar missions much more sustainable and cost-effective.
Absolutely. And it could even pave the way for establishing a permanent human presence on the moon, maybe even a lunar base.
It's incredible to think about all the possibilities.
It is, and it's a testament to the ingenuity and dedication of the Indian Space Research Organization.
Okay, before we move on to our final segment, I want to circle back to the Kisan Credit Card scheme and those rising bad loans we were discussing earlier.
Yes, it's a complex issue that required careful consideration.
We talked about some of the challenges faced by farmers, but what are some potential solutions?
Well, one important step would be to strengthen the financial literacy of farmers.
So they can make more informed decisions about borrowing and managing their finances.
Exactly. Providing them with the knowledge and tools to navigate the complexities of credit can make a big difference.
And we also need to make the Kisan Credit Card scheme itself more efficient and accessible.
Right, streamlining the application process, ensuring timely disbursement of loans, offering more flexible repayment options, all of these things can help.
So it's about making the system more user-friendly, more responsive to the needs of farmers.
Precisely, but it's also about addressing those broader systemic issues that contribute to the problem.
Like unpredictable weather patterns, fluctuating market prices, rising input costs.
Right. Investing in robust agricultural infrastructure like better irrigation systems, drought-resistant crop varieties, efficient storage facilities, these are all essential steps.
It's a multi-pronged approach. We need to tackle the problem from all angles.
And it's important to remember that these are not just abstract policy discussions. They have a real impact on the lives of millions of farmers.
Their well-being is crucial for the health of our entire nation.
Absolutely. It's something we need to take seriously.
Welcome back, everyone. We're wrapping up our deep dive into current affairs for the 12th of March, 2025. And let's pick up where we left off, talking about Chandrayaan-3.
That's right. We were discussing its amazing discovery, evidence suggesting there's water ice beyond the moon's polar regions.
It's a game changer, potentially reshaping our understanding of the moon and its future.
Exactly. We've always known about the water ice at the lunar poles, but finding it elsewhere opens up so many new possibilities.
It's incredible what ISRO has achieved with this mission. You mentioned the CHESI instrument played a key role. Can you explain a bit more about how it works?
Sure. CHESI stands for Chandra's Surface Thermophysical Experiment, and it's designed to measure temperature variations below the lunar surface.
So like a lunar thermometer.
Well, sort of, but it's far more advanced. It can actually penetrate the lunar soil and detect temperature differences at different depths.
Wow, that's impressive.
It is, and that's how it detected that temperature difference between the surface and 10 centimeters down, strongly indicating the presence of water ice.
And this discovery is huge for future lunar missions, right?
Absolutely. Water ice on the moon is a game changer. It could be a source of drinking water for astronauts, oxygen for breathing, even fuel for rockets.
So instead of hauling all those resources from Earth, we could use what's already on the moon.
Exactly. It's all about sustainability and making those lunar missions more feasible.
It's fantastic to see how Chandrayaan-3 is paving the way for a more sustainable future in space.
And for you, as UPSC aspirants, this highlights how important science and technology are in shaping India's global standing.
It's inspiring, for sure. Now let's shift gears back to the global arms trade. We were discussing India's diversification of arms imports.
Yes, moving away from that traditional reliance on Russia.
What are the driving forces behind this shift?
Well, it's a strategic move, influenced by a number of things, one being the ever-changing global security landscape.
We need to ensure we have a reliable source of defense equipment.
Exactly. Diversifying our sources makes us less vulnerable to disruptions, political pressures, or any limitations from a single supplier.
So it's like not putting all our eggs in one basket.
Yes. Precisely. Another key factor is the desire to acquire cutting-edge technology.
We want to enhance our own indigenous defense capabilities.
Partnering with different nations gives India access to advanced technologies and expertise, which in turn boosts our domestic defense industry.
So it's a win-win. We get the equipment and the knowledge.
And this diversification also aligns with India's ambition to become a major player in the global defense market.
Makes sense. The more we engage with different suppliers, the more options we have.
We can negotiate better deals, acquire a wider range of equipment, gain valuable experience in international defense cooperation.
It's a smart move, for sure. Now, before we wrap up, let's revisit the Kisan Credit Card scheme and those rising bad loans.
Yes, that's a crucial topic. The well-being of our farmers is essential for the health of our nation.
We've talked about the challenges they face. Unpredictable weather, fluctuating prices, rising input costs. What can be done to make the scheme more effective?
Well, financial literacy is key. Giving farmers the knowledge to manage their finances and make informed decisions about borrowing is crucial.
empowering them to take control of their financial well-being.
Exactly. We also need to streamline the Kisan Credit Card scheme, make it more efficient and accessible.
Simplify the application process, ensure timely disbursement of loans, offer more flexible repayment options.
It's about tailoring the system to the real needs of farmers.
But it's not just about the scheme itself. We need to address those wider issues.
You're right. Investing in better agricultural infrastructure is critical. Things like irrigation systems, drought-resistant crops, efficient storage facilities, all of that can make a huge difference.
It's a multi-pronged approach, tackling the problem from different angles.
And for UPSC aspirants, this highlights the importance of understanding the interconnectedness of these issues.
Finding holistic solutions that get to the root of the problem.
It's about thinking critically and crafting policies that truly make a difference.
Well said. This wraps up our deep dive into current affairs for the 12th of March, 2025.
We've covered a lot of ground, from international incidents to domestic challenges and groundbreaking scientific discoveries.
Remember, this is just a starting point. We encourage you to delve deeper, explore different viewpoints, and form your own informed opinions.
Stay curious, keep learning, and most importantly, stay engaged with the world around you.
Your UPSC journey is all about continuous learning. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more insightful analysis of current affairs.
Until then, best of luck with your preparations and stay informed.